Ben Simmons has officially hit rock bottom. After completely losing his confidence a couple years back in the playoffs for the Sixers, Ben Simmons has been in an absolute downward spiral ever since. And at this point, a lot of people think Ben could potentially be out of the NBA in a couple years, which is absolutely crazy to say considering how good and how much potential people saw in him earlier on in his career. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports, I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention that I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. The story of Ben Simmons was a very interesting one. Originally, when Ben was coming into the NBA, there was a ton of hype and excitement around him. He was seen as a player that had all the potential in the world, and he was seen as a potential next LeBron James, or at the bare minimum, a superstar type player. And the reason why people had these kind of expectations for Ben was due to the fact that he was 6'10 or 6'11 in size, had a phenomenal understanding of the NBA game, had a tremendous ability to pass and play make, and even in terms of his individual scoring, although he wasn't able to shoot whatsoever, he did have a very nice and really dominant ability to drive all the way to the basket. So even though he didn't have a jump shot, people still saw Ben Simmons as extremely talented and potentially the next LeBron James just due to that passing and playmaking ability, that defense, and that scoring ability driving all the way to the basket. Now, living up to those crazy high expectations is extremely difficult for any player, but when you look at Ben Simmons, he was actually doing a really nice job early on to somewhat near those expectations. As in his rookie season, he averaged almost 16 points per game on 54% shooting from the field, 8.1 rebounds on 8.2 assists. Now, obviously Ben wasn't averaging 20 plus a game, but he was doing a really nice job in the efficiency department, but also in the scoring department. But most importantly, what Ben did well out there was facilitate for his teammates, just made everybody around him better, and honestly, he was one of the better passers and playmakers in the NBA in his rookie season, not just out of the rookies, out of everybody. And he was really proving that size that he had was a real advantage for him, because on the defensive side, he can easily grab the rebound, dribble the ball up the court, and find his teammates for wide open dunks or layups. Just having that guy with that size that had that kind of ability was proving to be extremely valuable. Now, I mentioned this in a lot of my videos, but the new age NBA is going in that exact direction. They want players that are taller, either 6'10, 6'8, 6'9, that also have the ability to facilitate out there. And the fact that Ben was able to do that, but do it at a very elite level, was obviously very encouraging to see. Now, in Ben's second season, he improved slightly, averaging 17 points per game on 56% shooting from the field, 8.8 rebounds on 7.7 assists. Now, that season, once again, Ben was showing all the strengths that we already knew in his rookie season, but he was improving upon them slightly, and he was just doing a really nice job out there for the Sixers. People were extremely excited about the duo of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, who at that point were both proving to be superstar caliber players. Now, in Ben's third season, which was 2019, he put up very similar numbers once again, averaging 16 points per game on 7.8 rebounds per game on 8 assists. And obviously those are great numbers, but one issue that was starting to persist at least a little bit was injuries. As that season he only played 57 games, but in his first two seasons he played 81 and 79 games respectively. And in Ben's official rookie season he didn't play whatsoever due to injury, so obviously there was somewhat of a concern after that 2019 year. Now, 2020 ended up being the start of the downfall for Ben Simmons. Now, he was getting injured slightly that year. He only played 58 games, which wasn't great, but when you looked at his numbers, he was averaging 14 points per game on 7.2 rebounds per game on 6.9 assists. And at the time, the Sixers organization, and Doc Rivers specifically, was saying the reason for why Ben's numbers were dropping slightly was due to the new coach in Doc Rivers at the time, and Ben was still getting used to the new system. Now, at the time, some people believed it, but many people didn't, and they started to get worried about Ben Simmons slightly. But once it came down to the playoffs, that's really where things turned south for Ben. In their matchup against the Atlanta Hawks, basically everybody expected the Sixers to win that series. Now, unfortunately, in the end, we know they didn't, but Ben Simmons was a huge reason for why. For whatever reason, Ben just completely lost all confidence, and we probably all saw that viral clip going around where Ben literally had a wide open dunk that would have helped the Sixers out tremendously in a clutch situation, but he decided to pass it up, and whether or not that play was the reason the Sixers lost that game, and more specifically that series is kind of besides the point. The fact that Ben decided to pass up a wide open dunk really just showed how low his confidence truly was. And I mentioned this in a lot of my videos, but when you're a player that completely loses your confidence, it's very, very difficult to ever get back. Because in the NBA, and really in any sport, confidence is everything. You could be the most talented player in the world, but if you don't have confidence at all, it's going to be very difficult to play well consistently. And vice versa, if you're a player that doesn't have the most talent, but you're extremely confident, you're probably going to play better than your talent would suggest. So the fact that Ben completely lost all confidence in that playoff series was obviously really, really bad. And actually his performance was so bad that the Sixers decided to move on from Ben and traded him to the Brooklyn Nets in that James Harden deal. And in Ben's first year with the Nets, he didn't play at all. He was dealing with some injuries, but it seemed like he probably could have came back midway through the season, or at the bare minimum late in the season. But for whatever reason, maybe it was due to confidence, maybe it was due to some other mental issues, but Ben decided not to come back at all that season. And the fact that it seemed like Ben could have came back that year and the Nets probably needed him in the playoffs, and the fact that Ben played so poorly in his last playoff series with the Sixers, obviously it wasn't a good look at all that he didn't play that year. But going into this season, obviously Ben Simmons was going to play, and although people weren't all that high on Ben anymore after what he's done over the past couple years, people still were interested to see what he can do. But so far this season, Ben has just not been good at all, to be honest. This year he's averaging 7 points per game on 6.3 rebounds on 6.1 assists. Now obviously he's doing some nice things out there. He's playing some decent defense, he's rebounding the ball effectively, he's still facilitating pretty well, but he's not doing any of those things at an elite level like he used to, and most importantly, he just doesn't have that much confidence out there, and he's not really a threat offensively. And no matter how good of a passer and playmaker you are out there, if you're not a threat really at all offensively, it just makes it so much more difficult for everybody else out there on the court. But now, the question is, do I think that Ben Simmons could potentially be out of the league in a couple seasons? Well, in my opinion, I think it's definitely possible. It's pretty clear that Ben hasn't been headed in the right direction as of late, whether you talk about on the court or even off the court issues. And if he continues on this trajectory, he probably will be out of the NBA in a couple years. But with that being said, I do still think there's something there with Ben Simmons. I do still think he has a lot of the same tools and a lot of the same skills that he did early on when he was a great prospect. And I honestly do think he could turn his career around at least somewhat. I think in order for him to do so, he's going to need to work on his confidence most importantly, but also I think the situation that he goes to needs to be perfect. And I don't necessarily think the Nets are that, even though they just traded away their stars. Now in the end, it could end up turning into a great situation for Ben, but in my opinion, I do think he probably needs a change in scenery. But obviously at this point, things aren't looking all that great, and I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if he was out of the league in the next 2 or 3 years, which is honestly crazy to say considering the level of expectations he had coming into the NBA, the promise that he showed in his first couple years, and the fact that not only was he showing a lot of promise, he was looking like a legitimate future superstar. But it just kind of goes to show you how important confidence truly is. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening with Ben Simmons. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Ben Simmons could turn his career around, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy it, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.